Hello and welcome to Adventures with Scars. I'm your host, Lauren Huffmaster. Adventures with Scars is a discussion on the emotional side effects of cancer. When someone is diagnosed with cancer, she's presented with a huge binder on all the side effects, the physical side effects she may or may not experience. And this binder allows the patient to know and be aware and not get caught off guard with some changes that she's going to experience. But when it comes to the non-physical impact of cancer, the way cancer impacts the rest of our life, no direction is provided. So in this podcast, we're really working on defining how cancer impacts the rest of us, the rest of our life, the rest of our relationships, our emotions, everything that's not physical. We want to provide you stories and words that define this true impact of cancer. Our hope is by talking about the other side of cancer story, we'll minimize the emotional side effects of cancer and all those experiencing cancer today. So today let's talk to a co-survivor, someone whose life was impacted by cancer through a loved one. And I've invited Josh Tidwell. Josh is the founder of Cassie's Cause, and he and his son's life have been impacted by the cancer of his wife. So Josh, thank you so much for coming today and sharing your story.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Lauren.
Can you tell me a little bit about your wife and your cancer story?
Yeah, sure. Happy to. So my wife's name was Cassie Tidwell, Cassie Johnson, when I met her way back in 2009. Um, our cancer story began in February of 2018 when after the birth of our firstborn son, Greer, she kept having issues with breastfeeding, and went to the doctor, and it was well, we think it's just mastitis. Here's some antibiotics. Seemed to resolve the situation. Then it had a reoccurrence shortly thereafter. Again, believe it's mastitis. Here's some more antibiotics. Seemed to work the last time, and then go back and try again. She was thoroughly convinced that something was not right, that this was something larger than what we were being told. And so then, after her own investigation, and just went to a walk-in clinic, they did an ultrasound and found a mass. And from there, the ball got rolling. CT scans, biopsies, the whole 9 yards. We were thrust into this whole world that we didn't know anything about, and quickly learned more than we ever wanted to know about. And it's pretty tough, given the fact that, again, we were first time parents. 7.5 months is all that this first time mother was given before she had the whole kitchen sink thrown at her, with basically our worlds being turned upside down, and all the hopes and plans and dreams that we had talked about and discussed were seemingly just coming to a halt because of this prognosis.
And
So,
sorry, go ahead.
and it was hard so as the caregiver and the husband, and my background being an environmental engineer, faced with a problem, and so you look for solutions. And this was something that, again, speaking from my personal side, it was something that I couldn't fix, no matter how much I wanted to try, or any angle that I looked at. There was nothing that I could do to seemingly fix this. There was a lot of options out there, but then finding the right one at the right time, and making that decision, and really hoping for the best is really, it's really tough, considering that, you just it's really it's really, you look at your options, you select one, and then it's you know, you just hope it works. There's no, you're given percentages, um, you're given statistics, and you're given probabilities. And you know, usually when you're making decisions, especially health ones, you don't want to look at, uh, okay, well, this one might be the best one for you, instead of which one. No, which one is the best one for me? Um, and that was really tough. And she realized what she was going through and what she was facing. And I guess from my standpoint, I kind of wanted to push it aside, not so much push it aside as though it wasn't there, but to look at it from a positive light, and from the standpoint of, well, I know the statistics say this, I know the probabilities say this. However, we don't you're not a statistic. You don't we're not a we're not a probability. We you're better than this. You're this unique individual that I don't think fits in any of these categories. And so that that seemed to cause some rifts at times, that as though I wasn't as though I wasn't um, believing that the real the real is coming to a realization of what we were facing, as though I was downplaying it, when it wasn't anything like that. It was more of, I wanted to try to persuade her to be more encouraging, to be more positive. But sometimes that came off as me not fully engaged and and accepting uh, of this diagnosis, and the I guess the path that we had coming at us, or that we were going down.
I know exactly what that feels like. I think my husband is very similar to you in mentality, and maybe this is just a caregiver thing. Maybe it's men. I don't know if this is just you and my husband, but I know that for me, my husband definitely wants to fix it, and I know that was his first and foremost struggle, is this idea that there's no amount of work he could do to make it go away. And that was the first thing he sort of had to grieve as a caregiver, was that he would do anything. He would work as hard as he could. He would do anything he could. There's no amount of work that could fix the problem. And then the second, and so therefore what he does is lean on this idea of positivity, that anything is possible, and we are irrationally optimistic. And though I am in that corner lots of times, there's times that I am not in that corner, and I have to wrestle with the questions, and I have to have a conversation with him after a doctor's appointment, and sort of update him on what I'm hearing. And it does, to me, sometimes feel like he doesn't want to hear what I have to say. So even just last night, I had a doctor's appointment yesterday, and the doctor's really, my cancer is mutated to triple negative, and so there's significantly less resources available to triple negative cancer. And so my doctor was talking about how chemo is my present and my future. There's not many choices for me besides chemo. And this did not feel good to me. I was sort of in the old mentality that chemo was a window of time. You put in your 6 months and then you get to walk away. And that's just not where I am now. And so I was definitely internally adjusting my expectations for myself and for our family. And I present this to Clifton, and his response is all this positivity. And
Mm-hmm.
I know I need that. I need it. It's my balancing. It's what pulls me back into alignment with my values and what I want to live by and what I want to believe. But it's sometimes hard because, yeah, I feel the same way sometimes, just that are you hearing me? Like chemo or more chemo, and there's no other choice besides chemo. And I feel that balance. And sometimes what frustrates me the most in our kind of conversations around cancer is really what saves me in the end, right? Like if he was willing to go down a dark hole with me, then we might never come out again as a couple, right? Like he has to sort of hold his ground and stand firm and be the positive ray of optimism all the time, even if I'm not feeling like it, in order for us to sort of remain on track and be the people we want to be. And even though I don't like it in the moment, I do know that it's best for me in the long run, right? I know that him looking for answers and staying positive is the right way to be and the right thing for me, but it doesn't always feel like what I want. So I totally, even just yesterday, I feel this exact kind of relationship with my husband. This, he wants to be positive. He doesn't want to focus on anything that's negative. He wants to move forward past the negative and keep looking for the solutions or the positive on the other side. And I want to sometimes just acknowledge, in my mind, I'm just saying I'm acknowledging the struggle, but it might be that I want to like wallow in it just for a minute so I can feel it and know that it's okay to have hard moments. But I do think the balance of him at my side is what I need. And so I'm very thankful for that. And I'm sure she was, even though it didn't maybe always feel good, I'm sure she was very thankful for your positive light as well, Josh.
And she was, and it it didn't really seem to surface. Like again, her battle began in 2018 and concluded in March of 2022. So, over that course of time, it wasn't up until the end of 21 or early in 22 before she really acknowledged and let me know that at times that really affected her. And so I guess it kind of hit me from a perspective of, oh my gosh, I've made her feel this way for 4.5 years, and she's just now telling me this. And so um, that was kind of tough, and thinking that I wasn't providing the support, even though I thought I was providing the support that she needed. And I think it's kind of twofold. It's one, as I mentioned, that being the husband and being the father, you want to find solutions, you want to fix the problems, and you want to take things head on and get an answer and fix what's wrong in our little bubble. And then two, also not wanting to believe that this was going to define us, that this was going to be this was what's ultimately going to be our life, that this is going to define us. This is, I wasn't willing to accept, and at some parts willing to accept that, okay, when you got diagnosed, you were triple negative, BRCA1 positive mutation. Um, people with this diagnosis typically don't live 5 years. I did not want to hear that, and to this day, it's hard for me to still say that. It's a statistic, and I approached it from the standpoint of you're not a statistic. I don't care what they say. This is not us. I know who you are. I know how strong of a human being you are. You're one of the most headstrong people that I've ever met, and with me by your side, we're gonna beat this. No matter what life throws at us, for sickness and in health, we agreed that we were gonna tackle life together, and no matter what was thrown at us, we're gonna prevail. And so I think that was kind of the twofold thing that I was that it hit me there. That I didn't really want to acknowledge that this was this was how our lives were going to be.
And cancer obviously has impacted your life, but it's also demonstrated to your family, your community, so many people now about how a difficulty, a tragedy, a trauma can become something good too. I know you're still living through the grief and the trauma of this cancer and losing your wife, but you've taken that and turned it into something good. So what can you tell us about what you're doing in Cassie's honor?
So Cassie has had three really good friends that she's known since grade school, and maybe a month after her passing, they approached me and Cassie's dad, um, and with this idea of, hey, would you mind if we started a foundation in Cassie's honor? We would like to do this. And I guess I'll take a step further back. Lauren, through your foundation, which was, I don't think it was I don't think it was by just chance that we were both attendees at the Leslie's Week event, and I had agreed to come to Leslie's Week and speak at that banquet without even knowing at the time that you were the keynote speaker. And then I found that out, and I thought, well, this is just not a chance that the the keynote speaker at a banquet that I have agreed to come speak at, we were the benefactor of her foundation, and I believe we possibly were the first retreat in one of in back in Tennessee at the tiny home that you had or you have with your foundation, and it was at this on this trip way back in 20, I think it was December of 2020, that Cassie and I and Greer got to spend so much time together. And we bought a chess set. We sat and played chess. We sat and talked to each other and told all kinds of stories, spent hours upon hours just sitting and looking at each other and telling each other what we think, what we expect, what the future might hold, options, just you name it. It was a great bonding experience. But then at the same time, she looked at me and said, this is a great idea. This is a great foundation. These are great opportunities that she's providing people. Why couldn't we do this in our hometown, in our community, for people that are in the same boat we're in? And I thought, yeah, that's great. I don't know how we're going to do that, especially with what we've got going on now and this 1-year-old running around here. So I don't know how that's going to happen, but yeah, sure. When we find time, we'll make that happen. So with that, fast forward to 2022, her friends approached me and said, you told us about the idea that she had. Why don't we make that happen? And we can do it in her honor and continue her legacy and continue this idea that she has and do something for people like she would have done, that she wanted to do. And so in May of 2022, we started Cassie's Cause Foundation and have kind of hit the ground running. Support from our community just again overwhelms me every day with the amount of people that want to get involved, the amount of people that are involved, and everyone every day coming up and willing to help, offering different ideas and different venues, different, you name it. It's been overwhelming. And so I guess, as you said and think about cancer, like you mentioned, there's a lot of bad. That's a ton of bad. The first things you think of are bad. One thing I will say that I myself, and I tell everyone that we meet and that is going down this journey, that one of the things that cancer, I guess, did for myself, for Cassie, is that when you think about it, you can just overwhelm yourself with all the bad, and and it's a lot, and it's a lot at times, and sometimes you think everything's okay and you don't really think about it. But one thing it did do is that it gave us the opportunity to think about what really matters, um, in your life. What what matters most, and what things don't really matter, that you kind of get, that are more emotionally driven and materialistically driven, and those type of things that, if as at the end of the day, it didn't really matter. So we kind of stripped life down to those things that really mattered, and those turned out, as you can imagine, it's your family, it's the relationship you have with your family, it's the relationships you have with your friends, and it's those things that really matter. And all the other, you know the gossip and the things that go on in your typical day-to-day life, the things that really doesn't matter at the end of the day, well, it didn't bother us. It didn't. And to this day, I still don't let those things bother me, because I know that there's a lot more important things in life than conflicts at work, conflicts um, with people who don't believe the same things that I do, from a, you name it, political standpoint, or you know any types of little petty arguments uh, that we tend to mull over and hold grudges over sometimes. And that stuff, just, it doesn't bother me at all anymore, and it didn't bother her, and we just kind of let that stuff go. So I guess it, from the standpoint of, um, what we've learned, or what I guess a gift from cancer, is that really the only things in life that really matter to me, that's what I spend all my time and energy on. And the things that don't, I just don't let it affect me. I want to help. I want to help the people that that are having to go down the same road that myself and Cassie have been down. I know what they're feeling. I know what they're thinking. Uh, and I spend all my energy to try to help them in any way that I can, whether that's financially, whether that's sitting down and having a cup of coffee, and let's just talk about how you feel, and just sit there and listen to someone. You know, I know where I was at times, where I just needed someone to just sit and listen to me, and I could rant and get all this stuff out of my system. And so I want to be that person for them. I know it matters to them, and so it matters to me. That's, I guess that's I get from all the bad things cancer is, there are things that you can, that you can learn from, and help others with.
Absolutely. And honestly, I completely agree with you. The number one thing I want to do for people is be able to sit and listen to them, because it is really hard to carry all of those burdens inside of you and not have anyone to give them to. As a patient, I can't really give them to my husband because he's carrying his own burdens, and it's hard to find other people who understand what I'm feeling and don't need to fix it for me. They just hear me and they acknowledge me and let me leave it there on the table. And so in my personal life, I've been very motivated. It sounds like just like you, just to be able to be available to talk to people. It doesn't matter who texts me or Facebook message me or Instagram messages me and they say want to talk. I give them my number and tell them to call me anytime, because letting people get that out of them is the best gift we can offer. And so if you know someone impacted by cancer and you're listening, set up a time just to listen to them. Like, you don't have to have the answers. You don't have to have the right words. There's nothing that will fix the problem. As Josh said, there's nothing we can do to fix the problem, but we can listen. We can just receive the gift of the time with them. We can receive their heart and their emotions and let them feel unburdened for a moment. And that is one of the best things we can offer one another when we're going through something difficult like cancer. Josh, you were talking about how adventure therapy was part of the inspiration for Cassie's cause. It's interesting because the last podcast we recorded, we talked about the ripples, how the decisions we make, or the choice of living in hope, or the little kindnesses that we take action on, how those leave ripples, and that becomes part of our legacy. And then you're the next person I talk to in the conversation, and it's because of adventure therapy that you and your wife had this idea to start helping others. And so in some ways, these ripples that the kindnesses you're showing others are part of the ripples of adventure therapy. And so it just, again, without even trying, we've shown how this multiplication of kindness can happen when we do help one another, when we do lean in instead of stepping back and quote unquote giving people their space, but instead we lean in and become a part of each other's life. Even when life is messy and hurting, we can help each other one step forward, and this legacy of kindness can continue. And it's quite beautiful because none of us will really fully understand our impact on the world, but just to see this connection of last time, that was all the conversation about raising up children who understand resilience, and understanding that we can't do big giant things, but we can do small kindnesses. And then here again, instantly, you're here telling us about how one kindness leads to another set of kindness. And I just think it's beautiful to see that pattern. And who knows, the people you help are going to move on and help other people, and there'll be generations of this just expanding, always expanding outward. And that is really what we're looking for, I think, is to, when we want to leave a legacy. Cassie had the idea of helping others, and helping others in a way that you guys could manage, and in a way that would possibly come naturally from your hometown and from your interest. And yet now you've got this whole movement, the whole community is in a movement to help others who are in need. And that's just going to continue to grow and grow, and your ripples will extend in that of your son, and your legacy, the legacy of Cassie and you and your son, just continues to grow. And that's amazing. I think that's amazing that Cassie's one idea could leave such an impact.
Absolutely. And you hit the nail on the head. I mean, with the small phrase, and this is one that at our church that we put on signs, and it's a slogan that if you just drive by and you see it, you just think, okay, well, that's something nice to say, but it's one simple act of kindness. You never know how far one simple act of kindness will go. You never know that person that you meet, the burdens they're carrying that day, and that one simple act of kindness that you gave them, that may have made their whole day better, that may have made their whole week better, that may have made them make a better decision, that they were looking at a problem that they didn't have a lot of hope for, and through your simple act of kindness, you gave them an opportunity to think of something in a different way. And then maybe that spurred them to go and start another adventure therapy or another Cassie's Cause Foundation, and it's an exponential growth, and it's just wonderful to think of it in that way. And as you have people that come to you, and likewise with us, people that we help, you help them, and you see that instant gratification, but then sometimes you kind of lose track, and it's good to see those folks come back and to see what things they have done since then. And again, like that simple act of kindness, you never know what burdens someone is carrying around throughout the day. So just be kind to one another. I mean, that's the simplest thing. It sounds like a cliche, and an easy thing to throw out there. But if you just sit and think about it, I mean, what else could we do to better impact each other than just simply being nice to one another?
Absolutely. I think that a lot of the things we talk about on this podcast seem slightly cliche, but I don't think that that's a bad thing. Like my husband always says, like, it's the most famous for a reason. Like there's a reason people say things over and over. And one of the things we hear over and over on the podcast is cancer made me realize the only thing that matters is my family and the people that I love and the people around me. And I want to prioritize that. I want to value that. I want to celebrate that and let everything else just go. And I mean, everyone who's impacted by cancer really reprioritizes their life. It seems like most of the people we talk about reprioritize their life and they forget about all the stuff and they just focus on the people and know that they have what they need as long as those people are at their side. And that might sound cliche, but it's what is at the core of us. It's what comes out when everything else falls apart, you know? And the same thing, kindness, like it sounds simple. Like you said, you're driving by, it's just a simple idea, but when it can come out into the world, it saves people from fear and desperation. I know that there are times when I'm afraid, and if one person just will text me and say something kind, all of that fear can sort of just get let go. I can just breathe it out and let it go for a minute because I know I'm not alone. Because isolation can build fear and fear can build brokenness but if one person just steps into that chasm and says, you're not alone, you know, you're here, I'm just thinking about you. All of that can just be breathed and let go. And instead, in the place of it, this kindness can start to grow, the seed of kindness. And it's simple. It doesn't have to be complicated to fix the problems, you know, it can be very simple, but it's powerful. I think that's maybe a breakdown in our minds. If it's simple, therefore it must be too good to be true. But in the case of things that are important, the simple is sometimes the most powerful.
Absolutely.
Well, Josh, I thank you so much for sharing your story today. I do want to ask, when it comes to, and I mentioned fear, isolation, and broken identity, do you feel like you or your wife experienced these along the way?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, again, from being the caregiver and being the husband and the father of the family, I didn't ever want to show. I wanted to show the positivity. I wanted to find the solution, but I didn't want to show any fear or any be overly emotional in front of her, because I knew what she was facing. And it and at times we had conversations where, you know, I would try to talk about it, and then, you know, there were stints where she would just look at me and say, but that's not happening to you. And I would have to back up and reassess the angle, you know, that 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 I was approaching her with our conversation. And yes, but if it's happening to you, it's happening to me. Okay. And so at times I would just have to just go off to myself and go and have my own little pity party where it was just me by myself or me with Greer, you know, go out, spend some time hiking, go out along to the river's edge and just have some quiet time and time to just sit and reflect uh and yeah, I mean, there's the whole range of emotions you're gonna you would have it seeming like sometimes you would go through all those emotions every day. It may be a week at a time, and it may be months at a time, but you experience them all. There's no shortage of highs and lows, and a lot of times the lows are really really low. It's so yeah, you that's the one thing I also tell folks that are dealing with it is it's not so much the physical, because everybody can, most of the time you can see the physical the physical aspects of cancer and understand that, but it's the mental, the grind, the, oh, well, you've made a decision, and this decision's working for you, and then the next thing you know, you get a scan, and oh, well, that is completely upended that decision that we made, and now we've got to change gears. And so um the just the mental gymnastics that you have to go through and have to be ready at any given time to go back to square one. It's really hard, especially the first time that, after your first line of treatment fails, and you're back to square one there. After the second one, it seems okay. Well, we've been down this road before. We'll go right back down it until there are no options available. But like I said, the mental gymnastics you have to play, and going back and forth, and the highs and the lows, up and down. It's just it it can be it's very challenging.
We've talked a lot on the podcast about the best ways to support the caregivers and the co-survivors. Was there anything that someone did for you to support you that was really impactful?
I guess so. As I previously mentioned, that we had conversations, and we would get to points and where she would point out that this was not happening to me, and um, that some of the retreats that we went on, and some of the people that we talked to, we'd get in a group session, or we would talk to people, and they would they would they would acknowledge me as a caregiver having the same emotions and having the right to the same things um, that she is going through. And don't get me wrong, this was not it only happened a couple of times. Just in again, you gotta there's a lot going on, and so you sometimes you have you can have arguments, or have differences of opinion of how you need to approach one line of treatment versus another. And I think this would probably be best versus this other. But um I guess to talk to people and know that um they they're also going through the same thing. One of the families I talked to just last week, I talked to the patient, and he had an unfavorable PET scan. They believe they've got reoccurrence, and it's spread into multiple organs now. And shortly after I talked to him, I talked to his wife, and she felt as though it was almost her fault. And that kind of shocked me, thinking, well, you know, cancer is it's a cellular disease. It's a mutation of cells within one's body. So how could you cause that? There's nothing that you could have done that have caused that. And her words were just, well, I just feel like I've done things in the past that could have that we're being punished for something that I've done, or something that he's done. And and it just it kind of took me back, and I just wanted to assure her that, listen, no one that nothing that you could ever possibly do in this physical world would warrant the treatment or the burden that you guys are having to carry now. That nothing you could ever do would warrant what you're having to go through. So anything that you're thinking like that you might be the cause and of something like this, that that um, that shouldn't enter your brain. That to focus on helping your loved one cope, helping them, helping raise your family, helping helping the psyche of the one that's having to go through this.
I love your story about sort of getting permission from someone to say that you are also being impacted by cancer. That and I've created a word, co-survivor, meaning that everyone in my household is being impacted by cancer. They do not have a diagnosis, but they have to go through all the emotions that I go through. They have to watch me come and go in strength and all the things that I go. They hold their breath when I go to the PET scan, just like I do. They're walking through the emotional journey of cancer, even though I'm the one who is the patient. My kids, my husband are all walking through it with me. And so in my framework and my philosophy, you are a co-survivor. You are impacted by cancer. You didn't have a diagnosis, but you definitely had to carry the burden of cancer. And so I appreciate that you share the story, just that someone sort of gave you permission to acknowledge that yes, you're part of the cancer is impacting your life too. And many of the ways that we are talking about cancer's impact, this emotional impact, you are having to not only imagine your life without your wife, Cassie, at your side, but now you're having to walk that out. And so your identity has had to shift and it's been broken, and you've had to redefine who you are and what you're going to do with your life now, because the vision, the ideals you had held before this are shattered and broken. And so the fear, the isolation, the broken identity, all of those things are just as real for co-survivors, for caregivers, as they are for patients. And so I just want to say that, so that if anyone else is out there, maybe like Josh felt they didn't have the right, or even they've been told. I've heard patients tell their caregivers that you don't have the right to be sad right now. This is all about me, but I don't think that that's true. I think we all are carrying this emotional burden from cancer in different ways, but very much true. We're all equally burdened, I think, because it's just as hard for you as a caregiver, Josh, who can't fix anything, who can't sleep more or take more vitamins or do whatever it is the doctor wants us to do to get strong. You can do those things. Only I, as a patient, and your wife could do it. And that disattachment actually is more difficult sometimes, I think, for my husband as well. But yeah, so co-survivors, I think this is a really important idea that we need to start seeing beyond the patient, right? We need to start seeing, and in my world, to our children, the next generation that's already being impacted by cancer, because Greer's life was impacted by cancer from birth, from the time he was born. This moment of shifting happened in your guys' life from the beginning, and his whole life will be impacted by cancer. It doesn't mean that it will be negatively impacted because his mom's not there, but there's so much legacy being built around this impact. I know that your life has shifted, your perspectives have shifted, and there is a lot of growth and legacy that will be handed down to Greer because of cancer's presence in your family. And so it's a hard thing to balance, because we want to honor the patients, but we never want to forget the co-survivors and the caregivers in our lives. I think they're very important for us to acknowledge as well.
Absolutely, and I love that term, the co-survivors, and I'll gladly use that. With your permission, I think that's a great way to summarize that, and then also, things, as we discussed, gifts from cancer. I think that's an additional one. So when we talk to these families, and from my perspective as the caregiver, so much attention and focus is given to the actual patient and the person that is directly being affected by that. But I can also in turn look at the other family members and say, how are you doing? How are you feeling? How do you would you like to talk about this? Can I share with you how I felt, and the highs and lows, and the troubles that we we had to go through and the things that we experienced. And 99% of the time when I approach them and ask them how they're doing, it's just as though I just opened up a whole, I just pulled the plug from the dam, and they just let their emotions flow and then tell me how much better they feel after, because so many people don't, they just assume that, well, they're just there helping them and they're not affected that much. But it's, again, co-survivor, that's a great way of putting it. And you know like you mentioned with Greer, it was pretty much from birth that he was affected by cancer. And as of March of 22, when we lost Cassie, he was only 4 years old. So from an emotional standpoint, he wasn't really, he kind of understood, but didn't really understood, didn't really understand that he was not going to get to see his mom anymore. And we talk about it every day. I've been very open and honest with him from day one, and speak to him in terms that I know are well over his head. However, I tell him the same story, and I give him the same diagnosis, and tell him exactly the timeline and the things that have happened, because he can look at me and see the affliction in my, or the affliction, hear the affliction in my voice, and see the emotions on my face, that, okay, Dad is being serious right now. And the way he's telling me this is exactly how it happened. And this is how I know that this is exactly what happened to Mom. Okay. And when the time comes that that sets in to him, that his emotions get the best of him as he starts to develop, and he starts, getting hormones and that thing, and starts to understand that I will be here. And he knows that from day one, I've told him exactly how things, exactly what happened, and exactly how I felt at the time and how his mother felt. And to be able to go and through our foundation help others in his mother's name, to know that his mother had such an impact on me, on the rest of our family, and everyone in this community, that we've come together to do this in her honor, because that's how much she meant to us. That his mother was such a great person, that these people loved her and love him so much, that they're able to go and to continue that legacy and her name because of the person that she was.
Absolutely. And it's wonderful that Greer has you to speak honestly to him, and we don't, just because he's young, we don't have to cover up our emotions, because he senses your emotions whether you tell him or not. And so for you to tell him to be honest about what's really happened and what you're feeling now and what your intention is for with this legacy and the work you're doing, it is going to bond you, like you said, to your son, whatever age he is. And I think that I am a huge proponent to honesty in parenting, especially in the hard times. And in my life, I know my kids, I have almost got 3 teenage girls, but they all still like me, and they all still kind with me, and they're all still kind to me. And I think a lot of that comes from me being honest, me not pretending. If I'm going to pretend that everything's okay all the time, well, then they know that they can't really trust me. And I don't want them to feel that way. And they also might not feel like they have permission to tell me honestly how they feel in life, not about cancer. I mean, cancer is only a tiny part of their life. They are teenage girls. They have so many things in their heads, but they can come to me with the things that hurt in them. And the honesty becomes a reciprocal part of our growing into adult relationships. And this is really, really important, to not hide, even in the difficult situations, from our children, but to continue to foster that truth and that bond between them. But that's a whole nother thing. But I appreciate you talking about parenting and cancer, because that's another huge question mark that's just not really talked about enough. I know a lot of people want to know what's best to do as they walk through cancer in their treatments and beyond. So we know that you're raising up a beautiful young boy, absolutely adorable. And we're excited to see him grow and see what he does with his legacy that you guys are placing on his shoulders. But Josh, I just want to thank you so much for spending your time with me today and sharing your story. I know that it's going to be encouraging to so many people. And if this conversation has been meaningful to you, please check out the other episodes of our podcast, or you can dig a little deeper on our website, adventuretherapyfoundation.org. We have blogs and stories and a lot of educational opportunities for you to continue to learn about the emotional side effects of cancer. Also, check out Josh's foundation, Cassie's Cause. I think it can be found at cassiescausefoundation.org. Is that right, Josh?
That is correct.
Awesome. Yeah. If you're in the Southeast, Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, check out Cassie's Cause. Find out a way you can support him and his mission there. We're all doing good work. We're all just doing simple kindnesses, and these kindnesses are meaningful and changing lives all over. So thank you, Josh, for being with us today. And tune back in next time for a podcast with another patient survivor that you might be encouraged.
Thank you, Lauren.